I had a hobby too. Mine happened to be guns and ballistics, and I studied guns and ballistics as much as I could, and I wrote an article about high velocity.
So out of all my years working at Weatherby, the last 5 have been some of the most exciting. Working with Adam, with him running the company.
And to think that I get the opportunity of carrying on my grandfather's legacy 75 years later here in Sheridan, Wyoming, I mean, it really is a dream come true.
Oh, I'm home. Thank God I'm home.
On Our Mark, the Weatherby Podcast.
Welcome back to On Our Mark, the Weatherby Podcast. We have Adam Weatherby with us today and a special guest on the phone. They're both recently back from Namibia, and they had a pretty awesome adventure that I actually haven't heard a lot of details about, and I'm excited to hear about. Joseph Von Benedikt is on the phone. Hey, Joseph.
Hey, Luke. How are you?
I'm awesome. Adam, how are you today?
I'm great. Yeah, excited to chat about Africa. The opportunity came about because of this guy on the phone, so I think that's why it's important to have this here.
I wanted to find out a little more about how the trip came to be, and two, I was like a little shocked when you had said you had never been to Africa before, Adam, because I know Roy, like he went a lot of times.
So did my dad. Yeah, I mean, when you look through, all the Weatherby books and websites and all the things in the 50s and 60s, my grandpa went over there a lot. It was the cartridge development time. He had that old recording dictaphone that he took over there. We have black and whites throughout the factory of him up over there. He'd actually come back and do these large events because they didn't have podcasts where there were live events where he'd tell his African stories. My dad went. Year he graduated, the summer of '69. My dad went over there and shot all sorts of game and has been over there multiple times since, and even leading up to our kind of last dangerous game cartridge, 416 Weatherby, introduced in '88 or '89. Went over there with Craig Boddington. So a lot of family history over there in Africa, and I guess leading up to kind of where Joseph called was I'd been waiting for the right first opportunity. I'd had some opportunities. I think my love for, Western hunting, there's just so much, obviously, to hunt over here. I do love, eating the game and being able to bring it home. And, that's not in Africa, and it's a long ways. I'd been to Africa a number of times on some missions trips and things with churches and different things, as a lot of people know I was involved in. So I'd been to the continent 4 times previous, but had never hunted. And I guess the things I was looking for was I was looking for a good, authentic experience, where as much of old Africa as I could experience, similar to how my grandfather would have done it, maybe some traditional spot and stock type of things, and I guess just a little adventure and a little raw, and so that's what I was looking for. And in March, Joseph called me, and we were talking about guns, and the opportunity came up, and exactly what he was describing was what I'd kind of been waiting for, the opportunity.
Yeah, and so, Joseph, this wasn't your first rodeo over there.
No, actually, I think it was my 8th or 9th safari over there, but it was my 5th or 6th with this specific operator because, they're just extraordinary, and I'm sure we'll get into that. But, yeah, I had talked to Adam previously about Africa a few times and knew he'd never hunted there, although he'd visited several times. And every time I just had to kind of, chide him gently and say, we got to go someday. And I did that again, and much to my surprise, he was kind of quiet for a minute and on the phone and said, And I thought, hey,
maybe so.
This might turn into something.
And if you don't, I guess we didn't really introduce, if you don't know Joseph Von Benedikt, a good friend of mine. We first hunted together in 2015, actually, on a Argentinian dove hunt. Joseph, we've been on a backcountry bear hunt together. Joseph is an outdoor writer for several publications, Peterson's Hunting, rifle shooter, guns and ammo.
Shooting times.
And he's the host of the Backcountry Hunting podcast, of which I got to record episode number 1. I got to be with you, Joseph, a few years ago. And you're up to episode...
That's right.
What episode you up to now?
Just published number 180.
Wow.
Wow.
That's incredible. In 3 years? A little over 3?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So Joseph is kind of a gun nut, a gear guru, an outdoor enthusiast, a backcountry hunting, just an incredible hunter, an incredible shot, and just a really good friend. When you're going to go to Africa for 10 days or be in the backcountry, you got to go with somebody you really want to go with. And to be honest, that was part of the other allure, was the opportunity that was presenting itself, as well as the company to be with. And Joseph and I hunted together. And well, Joseph, actually, you always tell the story about when we really got to know each other in Argentina. You want to pitch in there?
Oh, I don't know this story.
You bet.
Let's hear that.
Oh, that's a fun one. So we'd been in Argentina for 5 days or something hunting, and when it came time to fly back to Buenos Aires, I think we were about 5.5 hours drive from that city, and we were scheduled to take a small commuter plane in and then transfer to the international airport and fly home. Well, we were sitting at the regional airport after a great hunt, and there was some fog. Now, Adam's a pilot, right? And he was looking around at this fog saying, I could land a plane in this. This is no problem. But, well, in Buenos Aires, in Argentina, sometimes they just don't do things because they don't feel like it. And that's part of the culture there we love. But we kept getting word that the plane was 20 minutes out. It's 20 minutes out. And then Adam, at one point, he's a good president. He knows when to take control. He looked around and he says, all right, guys, it's about to that point where if the plane isn't actually here in the next 20 minutes, we're not going to make our flight. So let's be on standby. He said, I'm going to be ready to start calling in some kind of taxis, a shuttle, the Uber brigade, whatever they have down here in Argentina. And about the time he finished saying that, the intercom came on again and it said, today's flight is canceled.
Just no reason. Just canceled.
No reason. And the plane just never came. And so Adam's on his phone over there and with our interpreter helping him, right? Within minutes, what was it, 4 or 5 black and dark navy blue sedans came screeching into the airport parking lot. It was like, man, are you connected with a cartel or something down here, Adam? It was awesome. So there was a group of outdoor riders there, and we all threw our stuff in these vehicles, and Adam and I ended up kind of sandwiched into the back of one, and we went hell for leather across Argentina, throughout, the back countryside. A lot of it was paved. Even when it was paved, it was full of potholes and rifts in the road and this and that. Some of it, occasionally we'd hit a gravel strip. But we did a lot of visiting about cartridges and ballistics and rifle design and religion, and just had great conversation for 5.5 hours as we
Going how fast, Joseph?
Oh, we were going fast. I remember I kind of kept an eye on the speedometer, and the driver, I got to say, he was a masterful driver. I would put him into a race, some kind of a Baja race without hesitation. And I think that needle was generally pegged between 160 and 180 kilometers per hour, whatever that extrapolates to in miles, right? It's pretty fast. And the funnest part was, at one point, about 60% through this journey, we all screeched in underneath the little weathered canopy of a gas station and were filling up. And at the time, Ed Weatherby, Adam's dad, was still heading up the company, and he wandered over. We visited for a minute, and then he kind of kicked a tire and said, "Did you guys see this?" We looked down on the front, not the rear, but the front axle of that car we were in. There's a donut tire. And on it, it said, "Do not exceed 55 kilometers per hour."
Oh, my goodness. That's a little scary.
So we were jammed in there with all our bags on our lap for 5-6 hours, and that's kind of where we really got to know each other. Just a fun day screaming down the roads of Argentina.
Yeah, it was pretty. Actually, even in the moment, I think we recognized it was a bit of an extraordinary experience, and we made our flight. So
Yeah, that's right.
all was good.
Nice.
Stick with me, Joseph. I'll get you there.
He'll get you there. So Joseph, you call Adam in March, and you're talking about some other stuff, and tease like, hey, maybe we'll go to Africa someday. And then Adam's like, yeah, maybe now.
No, it was I'm going in June, and here's all the things we can go hunt. Here's what it's going to be like, and you want to come in 3 months. So, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't give you a lot of notice, did I?
No. But to be honest, if you would, I'd have probably said no. So I'm good with last minute. It always works best for me. So one of the things that was alluring to me was I think the country of Namibia, just maybe not as commercialized. It's just a real rugged place, real neat place if you haven't been there. And one of the things was the kudu hunting that Joseph had talked to me about, and just kind of the real spot and stock and kind of the style of kudu hunting that he'd done out there before. And maybe, Joseph, you can describe it. But that was real alluring to me with the type of hunting that I like to do. And that ended up just being, to me, probably the highlight. One of the main highlights of the trip was hunting kudu.
Sure. Oh, it always is. Whether you're reading Rourke or Hemingway, all of those early authors, they established the kudu, and rightfully so, for what it is, kind of that pinnacle of the African plains game species. And the nickname is the gray ghost. They're difficult to hunt, very, very challenging as far as their habits, their escape mechanism, the habitat that they live in, and so forth. They're a big animal. They're about the size of an elk, although they're rangier. I think they're a little taller and longer legged, but maybe a little lighter. Beautiful big spiral horns. Much of the kudu hunting has become commercialized. If you go to a place where there's a good chance of shooting a big kudu bull in South Africa or whatnot, very high likelihood that it's a high fence operation, and very possibly a put and take operation where they go down to the auction and buy a big bull 2 weeks before you arrive, right?
Right.
Well, in Namibia, where we hunted, and like I say, this is, I think, my fifth, maybe my sixth time with this outfit, Kowas Hunting Safaris, Kowas. Well, they have 420,000 acres of prime free-range kudu country that they hold the exclusive lease on, to hunt these big kudu bulls. There's a high population of kudu, and the genetics are tremendous. And you hunt them the hard way. I mean, you can, let's say you have a real bad knee. You can ride around in the back of a Land Cruiser and get down and stalk, inside a quarter mile if you need to shoot a kudu bull there. But if you have the athletic and physical capability and the desire to, you can get off into that thorn brush desert country. It's kind of on the edge of the Kalahari. You can climb ridges and glass and stalk across giant valleys and shoot across draws and valleys and so forth, which is what we ended up doing. Rob Gearing and Austin Brown, our other hunting partners, put on 55 miles through thornbrush desert country in 5 days hunting kudu bulls. Yeah. And Adam, you had some highs and lows. It was a challenging hunt. Would you agree?
Agreed. And one of the things is everything there wants to poke you or scratch you or hook you.
Or bite you.
Or bite you in some way. And, man, that kudu country, we went in some thick stuff. And there were these blackjack things that they would come off, and you just have these, what do you even call those blackjack? They're not thorn, almost.
Kind of like a sand
It's
burr.
a burr.
Yeah.
Yep, it's a penetrating burr. Yep,
and they would penetrate in all the clothes, and
man.
So we were in a lot of that, a lot of thick stuff, and when you're hunting them the way we did, sure you can stumble across them in a Land Cruiser, and we did spook some out, not any shooter bulls that we would have been happy to shoot, but otherwise we probably would have gladly gone after them. But the way we hunted, it was we spotted them often 1,000 yards, mile away. And like that gray ghost part of them, you'd see them, and you really get the shine of their antlers in the sun, and then all of a sudden they disappear, and it's 20, 30 minutes later, and you see them poke out over here. And so it's super fun, really fun hunting.
So is that how you guys started off? Was that the first species you went after upon arrival there?
here's the deal. Joseph beat me there by 2 days due to our schedule. The reality is I was in like Frankfurt, and I get a text of a 338 RPM 185 TTSX bullet that had been shot, and it was bloody leaning up against a kudu horn. So
Nice.
basically, Joseph kicked it off and shot a kudu bull
Joseph
before
jumped
I got
the gun,
there.
is what you're
He
saying.
Jumped the gun, which ended up being, to be honest, the 338 RPM, which will be launching here soon. Both Rob Gearing with Spartan Precision, makes a lot of carbon fiber accessory products, bipod and shooting sticks. He's a great guy. Him, Joseph, and myself all ended up taking a kudu bull at various yardages, which we'll go into with that same bullet and with the gun that actually, Joseph, you took over there.
Yeah. Yep. That was a great shooting little carbon barrel backcountry 2.0 steel action chambered in 338 RPM with a 20-inch barrel. And my word, you wouldn't think that a little sub 6-pound gun like that, is closer to 5, would have the capability that we proved it had. It was a tremendous tool in that kudu country. I shot mine. I couldn't help it. It was just a beautiful old bull, not super long, but we were out actually, I think, looking for oryx, Rob Gearing and I, and just happened to find this old bull, and I was 200 yards from him, and I hadn't put in the miles to have earned him, but I had done so in past safaris, and I couldn't help myself, so I went ahead and shot him.
And you're you're moving right about 3,005 feet per second with that 185 in that 338 RPM? Yeah, with the 20-inch barrel.
Out of that 20-inch barrel, yep. And I shot mine on the point of the shoulder, quartered just slightly towards me, and we recovered that bullet, maybe 6 inches behind the crease behind the offside shoulder. So it penetrated through his vitals at an angle. And we had a little video of it. His leg, his onside shoulder that it impacted just went all loose. Obviously broke that entire shoulder on the entry side. And he went, 30 yards and collapsed. Dead right there. He was in thick thorn brush, so we didn't see it. We tracked him.
And your distance was right around 200, if I recall.
Yeah, I think 210, 215, something like that.
Yeah. So he really kicked it off. I guess we keep in line and finish out the kudu stories.
Yeah. Let's just do that.
Sure.
So then I got there
2 days later, or a day. Well, you were in Frankfurt, so the next day.
I don't know. It took me like 6 weeks to get there, and then I got there.
It always does.
I'm trying to think. Was that the first day that I was hunting? Went out there for kudu, Joseph?
I think we went out.
We did a game drive the first afternoon.
Yeah, the first evening we went out and looked around a bit, and I'm trying to remember if we actually hunted anything. It's kind of blurred together that first evening.
We kind of hunted, but we didn't shoot anything. But there is a story out of me getting there that leads into why I used the 338 of yours.
Yeah.
So maybe do you want me to hit on that?
Oh yeah, I was actually going to make a hand signal to Adam to see if he wanted to actually bring it up, because it's kind of sad.
If it won't scar your soul too much to tell it, Adam, I think listeners would be interested in hearing it.
Adam, you took 2 guns yourself over there.
Correct. And I thought, in the tradition of my grandfather and just Africa, I said, I'm going to go traditional. I'm going to get a big old heavy pretty wood gun. And actually, I'm going to get 2. So I did a 6.5 300 and a 4.16 and a matching set with a beautiful walnut stock with some African kind of scenery on the forearm. Beautiful. I did hand select the wood.
They're gorgeous. They were gorgeous.
Case hardened receivers. Barrel band sights on the 4.16, and had the matching 4.16 in case there was a dangerous game opportunity, which we'll get to. And then for my planes, was going to use the 6.5 300. I really wanted to test out some of the new hammer bullets we're using. So, yeah, long story. I get to Africa, and I get worried that Lufthansa damaged my rifles. I get there. Joseph also had a 4.16 similarly made up as well over there. So we had matching 4.16s, lots of guns. And so I got there, examined them, and the airlines didn't break them.
They look good.
They look great. So they said, hey, let's go down and verify 0 and make sure things didn't get bumped, which you always do when you travel. Great. So I go to pick up my rifles in some soft cases with leather straps. And so I sling the 6.5300 over my shoulder, and the little brass pin that holds the leather strap in broke. The barrel swung behind me and hit the ground, and it made a popping noise. But I thought, oh, whatever. I've been hunting with...
It's in the soft case.
In the soft case.
Okay.
It's probably fine. So I sling it over my shoulder. I'll maybe look at it when we drive, down in the Land Cruiser down to where we're going to shoot. I round the corner outside of the room I was staying in, and I look down, and the bottom of my case is flopping back and forward.
That's less than ideal.
And it should be a one-piece situation. And immediately Joseph walks out of his room. And what'd you see, Joseph, when you saw me at that very moment before I unzipped it?
I saw you bend over, lay it down on the cobblestone path and unzip it, and then stand up with 2 things in your hands, one in each hand, and you turned and looked down the path toward me with this look of anguish and despair. And I didn't know what to think. It was like one of your kids had got broken, I guess.
So we snapped the 6.5300 stock in half at the pistol grip.
Right at the grip. So basically it's useless.
It hit hard. I was on tile, and it hit hard, and it was a little tiny brass pin was the demise of it that came out on the leather strap. So then Joseph, the next day when we were hiking, he goes, Adam, I always put Loctite on those. I'm like, thanks, Joseph, for letting me know today. But pro tip, put Loctite on straps and slings as well if they have those brass pins.
But that 6.53...
the little brass screw-in grommet that holds the ends of your straps. Yep, rifle slings and rifle cases. I've seen both pop. Now, I'd never seen a case come apart like that before, but I had seen rifle slings give up in the back country when they'd come unthreaded. And holsters, like you carry a sidearm in, especially holsters. Yep.
Yeah. So the only, well, it's not even really a silver lining, but the good news about this is that the 6.5300 is basically a number 2 barrel contour, and the 416 is a number 3. So you had a bigger barrel channel, and you were able to.
So we did some gunsmithing. Some of it was pretty shoddy, I would say. Would you say, Joseph? But we did our best. We tried to repair the stock. We won't go into that. With the 2-part epoxy we found, and we made our own pins. So what we did in the end, when we kind of botched that stock, is we took the stock out of the 416. Obviously, it has a larger barrel channel and inlet for the secondary recoil lug, but it did fit on the 6.5300. Went down and shot it. It was like, what, a couple inches off, Joseph, when we switched them?
If that, yeah. It was almost on the money. And it shot well. Like, groups were fairly good.
Mm-hmm. So I ended up shooting some things with that 6.5300 in the 416 stock, but I was really wanting to test the 338 RPM out more as well. So all that to say, when we went kudu hunting, I was on the 338 RPM. That was a 5-minute roundabout to say that that's kind of, you wanted the lighter gun and wanted to shoot that. So,
but that's kind of a tough way to start your trip. Is you land. It took you 6 weeks to get there, and then you're verifying 0 and you're down a gun. Like, oh no.
Yeah. The good news is we had a plethora of Weatherbys over there, and so it was fun to be able to use all of them. So.
It's always a good day when one has a plethora of Weatherbys around. Now, I got to just back you up a little bit here, Adam. The first full day out, you actually hunted with your 6.5300 in that wood stock. And I'll let you tell that story if you want to, but that was, I mean, it's cumbersome when compared to that little lightweight backcountry 2.0.
Yeah.
And so that's part of the reason you shifted gears for the following day. So I'll leave you, whatever portion of that you want to share.
No, that's true. So I did go out with the 6.5300, and we did more traditional. Again, the first night we didn't find anything. We did go out for some other plains game that we were after. More Land Cruiser, and get out of the Land Cruiser and kind of go walk around, maybe get back in the Land Cruiser type of hunting. And so the first animal that we did end up coming across was an area with some springbuck, and so that ended up being the first animal that I shot with the 6.5300. was a spring bucket, not much over 150 yards. That was a cool experience. Joseph was there for that as well, and so that got to be just the first one. Use the 6.5 and I was able to shoot the first animal with that, a Dall sheep I shot in 2015, and so that cartridge is it's been fun. Shot a lot of things with it in the last several years, and so it was fun to be able to take that out and shoot a good spring buck, and so that was a fun experience. Went up to it, and actually, if you don't know and you haven't hunted spring buck, it's a cool thing it does when it's scared or when it's dead. The hair stands up on it like crazy, and you can see it on the pictures posted on my social media and stuff.
I saw that. Yeah.
And it smells like, people say cotton candy or something, like just for a minute, and it stands up, and then all of a sudden it goes down. So right when you go up to it, you take these photos right away, and then it goes down.
Oh, that's wild.
It's super
I
weird.
didn't know that. So it just relaxes, I guess.
Yeah, like right away. You go up to it, get a couple quick photos. Even before Joseph got out his good camera and everything, we were able to do that right away.
And it's kind of like the hair stands up like on the back of a Rhodesian Ridgeback kind of thing.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's
and
pretty
it
neat.
smells amazing. Your pH will tell you, stick your nose in that. And Adam, like all of us the first time, thought he was just trying to play a prank on him, but
Oh,
it
for
really
sure.
is a cool smell. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yep.
and then your first encounter with a really stomper kudu was while you were carrying that 6.5 300.
With the kudu?
Yeah.
Refresh me.
I wasn't there. I'm trying to figure this out. So
Well, I
Oh,
was
oh,
hoping you
yes.
would just tell that story about the MISS.
I thought we were going to finish that first day, though, because I shot another animal that first day with the
We
6.5
did,
300. And
Yep,
then
a
we'll go back
beautiful
to
one.
kudu, and then we'll just hang on kudu for a while.
Okay.
So I'll
Sounds good.
finish after the spring buck. Then I'll go to the MISS story. After the spring buck, Luke.
I was trying to read.
I really wanted to shoot a blue wildebeest. I just think they're really cool-looking creatures, and their hide, just their face. They're just so traditional, just cool creatures, and so. We went out and we walked through kind of a brushy kind of area with trees and different things where we knew that they hung out. So this wasn't a spot from a long ways away. It was a hike slowly and carefully in the woods isn't the name, but the bush after them. And we ended up basically coming upon one lone bull. A blue wildebeest. That was an old, mature bull. You could find a lot of kind of younger bulls, but this was an old, mature bull. And that's most of the things we were trying to hunt. It wasn't trophies. It was old and mature. And that's really what we were often going for. And so we stumbled across this thing and ended up doing a little stalk and kind of bumped it and did that whole thing and ended up getting 100 yards away. And
Nice.
they say kind of all that day when we were talking about wildebeest, just talked about how tough they are. In fact, Jacques Strauss, our PH, said, wildebeest, they say that wildebeest are born dead, and when you shoot them, they get more alive. So he was
And
trying
the more
to,
you shoot them, the more alive they
Alive they
become.
get.
Yeah.
so then
kidding.
I knew I had a 129 grain bullet I was going to be shooting.
How big is a wildebeest? I've seen pictures, but I've never seen one in person. So
Cow elk size.
okay,
Yeah.
okay,
Cow elk, but a little stockier.
gotcha.
Yeah.
And so they're tough animals. He was talking about all the ones he was tracking, and of course, we were using these hammer bullets here, these lathe turn bullets. We did a podcast on recently. You can check that one out, an episode or two ago, and made up here in Kalispell. And so I knew it was going to be moving fast. Well, this shot ended up being close as well, not much over 100 yards, and that wildebeest didn't go but maybe 30 yards and fell over dead.
No kidding.
And so it was two one-shot kills that day with the 6.5 300 with that 129 hammer. So it was Joseph. You said, I think you just commented on. I did a post yesterday on it, and I saw you commented on it. I mean, you were impressed with that bullet and with that cartridge and kind of the combination, huh?
I was, absolutely. Yeah. They tend to be really accurate. I've not had a chance to shoot any game with a hammer yet, but from what I've seen, they just regularly shoot well. I think it's probably the lathe turned characteristic where you get a little more concentricity, perfection of concentricity than in your average bullet. yeah, it killed that springbuck and that blue wildebeest very dead, very effectively.
Awesome. And so the PH thought that a 6.5 was relatively light for that animal. And
but it was moving a little bit faster than your average 6.5.
maybe the fastest.
Yeah. And it had a tough monometal bullet, so you got the penetration. And, you always got to pick your bullets when you go to Africa. This is, you cannot overstate how important that is, because you're shooting a spectrum of game. You might shoot anything from a 40-pound diker up to an 1,800 to 2,000-pound eland. And, well, maybe you have two guns, maybe you don't. But even with your light rifle, let's say you're out hunting springbucks or impala, deer-size antelope, pronghorn antelope-size game, and you happen across a world-class oryx, which are also known for toughness, and they're also kind of like cow elk size, but a little robust, more robust, stockier, and you have to shoot on the point of the shoulder or not take the shot. You got to have a bullet that will hold through and penetrate through the vitals. And the other thing about African game, of course, I don't know how much you want to get into that, Adam, but they carry their shoulders set further back on their skeletal frame, and their diaphragm is set further forward inside their thoracic cavity than your typical deer-type species, right? And we're talking hooved game that sheds antlers and so forth. The antelope species of Africa just about have to be shot, if they're standing broadside, centered on the shoulder. If you shoot into the crease behind the shoulder, like so many of your classic deer hunters do, you're going to clip the back edge of the vitals. And if they're standing at a slight angle, you're going to single lung them. If you wobble a bit and you shoot 4 inches behind the crease, you've just full-on stomach shot that animal.
Just
and
right
you've got
in
a
the paunch.
long, difficult, tracking job ahead of you. So when you start, gearing your mind up to shoot at African game, visualize shooting centered on that shoulder. So this is another reason you need a tough bullet, because whether you're shooting an impala or a kudu, you're going to have from a few inches to a lot of inches of heavy, dense muscle before you even get through the rib cage and into the vitals, and you may contact heavy bone, not just in the form of ribs, but in the form of shoulder bone. So shoot tough bullets when you go to Africa.
Well, it sounds like the hammer held up well for that.
It did, and that was a good few-minute overview. I think it is different. You can become an expert in your own backyard or a self-proclaimed expert and go somewhere else. And I did realize as I was there what a novice African hunter I was. It's just when you go somewhere else and experience something different from where the vitals are to, just the way you shoot there. Too, another challenging thing is majority of shots are off standing shooting six. Well, I mean, we do everything we can over here to avoid that. But but over there, the way the terrain is, it's just like really hard to,
It's real brushy and bushy, right? So
correct,
yeah.
with tall things. And so there's those kind of traditional African shooting sticks. And so, the style of shooting's different. The place where you shoot them is different. Where their vital sit's different. So in the first, 48 hours, I just started learning it was very different hunting experience, and took me a while to adapt to it. In fact, Joseph and I had a conversation kind of on the back porch there for a little bit about it one night, and that came after I had the MISS at a Kudu, the end of our first day of Kudu hunting, when I did have the 6.5 300. I forgot it was that rifle, Joseph. That's why I was trying to figure out what you were saying earlier. But it was, and
it's okay. I block out, emotionally scarring experiences too.
So that first day of kudu hunting, I ended up having a shot at a phenomenal kudu bull, what they would really call, maybe a once in a lifetime. Or you go back to Africa 10 times and you wouldn't have an opportunity at a bull like this. And it was somewhat of a rush shot. We had to kind of do the old, try to stop him in his tracks. And I shot over the top of him with the 6.5
And it wasn't
300.
a close shot either.
It was 450, I think, 440, 450.
Yeah. So it wasn't a super long shot, but it wasn't a chip shot. And the bull was leaving. He wasn't spooked. He was just leaving. He'd come down through the valley, got a drink, and then he was heading out. And so it was one of those things where if you're going to take that shot, you got to make it happen real quick, which is not an easy thing to do. And especially when you're recognizing, which I think Adam was by then, you'd seen a lot of bulls by then. You recognize this was an exceptional animal.
Definitely. So we had, a minute or two later, he'd have been at 550, 650, and he'd have been at a mile in 10 minutes.
Right.
And so it was a quick shot. However, it's one that I would have thought I would have connected on.
Yeah, I mean, I've been around you quite a bit,
know.
Adam, with shooting, and that's not a typical situation for you.
Let's just say I hung my head very low after that experience. Of course, what you tend to do, it's like you tend to second guess. Well, I mean, I dialed in both my woodstock guns back here and felt confident. Well, you can only take X amount of rounds over there. There's not exactly 65300 gun shops, stocking gun shops on every corner or in the country. And so, we'd sighted it in. I felt a little jinxed with the rifle at that point. I can blame it on anything, but most people can blame the gun, but my name's on the gun, so I couldn't do that. I blame the gun case, of course, because it wasn't my gun case. But had to regroup after missing that bull. And to be honest, I wanted to go back and find that bull. So the next day we hunted other game. To be honest, that was before.
That was stuck in your mind.
The next day is then when I went and we shot the springbuck and the wildebeest. Right, Joseph?
Yes, that's right.
Then the day after that, I believe, is when we said we were going to go back out and see if we could find that kudu, correct?
Yep. We gave that valley a rest because, a shot had been fired. It hadn't been really disturbed then, but we'd gone and done a bunch of hiking trying to get back on that bull, and that's when we got into the blackjack burrs so bad, and you got acquainted with the joys of blackthorn bushes and all of the other pleasantries that await one when climbing ridges in Namibia.
Right. We'd also seen at about 1,300 yards away another large bull. Never got as good of a look at him, and he was 1,300 yards away. So we were wondering if that one would turn up as well. So we dark hit that day, the day that I missed my bull. You got to hike around going, sure wish I'd have hit that one.
Great.
All day. So the next day we go out, shoot those other plains game that we discussed. Then the next day we were going to go back to Kudu land and try to find that, knowing pretty much I had in my mind I wanted the one I missed unless this other giant one showed up and it was comparable or larger or older or whatever. And so we went out that morning. Joseph came, and then Rob came as well. Rob hadn't shot a kudu yet. Again, Rob with the Spartan Precision. And he ended up having this new shooting stick system he had. He calls it a mobile shooting bench. If you don't know Rob, he's from the UK, has a very proper British accent, as does Mrs. Von Benedikt, right, Joseph?
That's right.
That's right. So we went out, and he had his shooting stick. So it was kind of a cool combo of this kind of little over 5-pound backcountry carbon gun and then Rob's carbon fiber shooting system. And it was back a little bit in my world, the heavy wood stock. Let's swap the stock, sight it in. I kind of just... And in that 338 RPM in the last couple of years, I've gone and shot multiple game with it. I hiked around with that gun, just was very confident in that rifle. And so between that and Rob's shooting system, I just felt a little bit more at home that morning. So we ended up, first thing that morning, cool story is, the first big kudu bull we saw was one with a broken horn. Correct, Joseph?
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. Yep, Jock, I think, spotted him first, and there's a little water hole down there that these kudu work down into out of this vast kind of complex of draws and canyons and valleys, and all around the water hole there's fresh red blood. That's what Jock saw first, and he radioed us. We'd split a little bit so we could watch two portions of the valley, and he said, there's blood all over down here. Something had a big fight. And then he saw those other huge bull, very, very big bull. We'd absolutely shot him, but one horn was broke off about 18 inches from the tip. And
you could see the
you
blood
could see on the horn. You see the blood all over his horn, on his ear on the one side. Yep. He'd just broken that horn in a fight.
So we saw that one.
Interesting.
And we thought, well, that's super interesting. Then we see another bull. And this bull, he was way up. He started closer, got to over 1,000 yards away or 1,300, and then started circling back to go to another draw that we knew had water, and we figured at this point it was maybe 9 o'clock or something. I don't know. And he was heading back that way, and it was another bull. We didn't get really good look at him. We knew he was a good bull. He wasn't the bull that I had missed. And so we began to put kind of a stock on this bull and left the other kind of area where they'd gone to water, where this one with the bloody horn was. And we put on this stock, and we get over there, and we know that, again, he's leaving and going away to water probably and then to bed. And so we knew we had a limited window.
Yeah, we were thinking in the back of our minds, could this be the bull that was fighting that other big one?
Yeah.
And he didn't get his drink there, and that's why he's making this giant loop. He went from, like you said, Adam, about 600 yards clear out past 1,000 yards away, and then hooked around, probably covered well over a mile in 30, 35 minutes.
Right.
And we kept just catching little flickers of him moving, and he wasn't stopping to feed, and he wasn't heading into a thicket to bed, which is why we started thinking, he's still thirsty. He's working around to water.
We thought he got fended off from that other watering hole by the bloody animal. That was our whole theory.
Okay.
Yep.
Works.
Long story, we hike over and we get 575 yards away.
From the water?
Yeah,
No,
as we were
from the
setting
Kudu.
up.
From the
Yep. As we were setting up, he's still moving a little bit, and then he paused in the shade of a thornbush tree, and he was about 200 yards from the other water source at that point. And just, I think he was listening, waiting, watching like an old wise animal will do before they just walk right into a water hole. You know, there's leopards and other things in that country, and that's kind of when we had a brief window to make our play if we were going to do it.
And I had been up to shoot. It's kind of already predetermined that I had first shot.
Right.
At that point, it was very clear that it was not the bull that I'd missed, nor the other one that we'd seen far away. And I'd kind of told myself that morning that I kind of wanted revenge, and I really wanted to shoot the one that I'd missed and wanted to find it. So last second, we're there, and I'd been the one that was nervous. And I said, Rob, do you want to shoot that bull? And within about 10 seconds, Rob was on his 5-legged shooting sticks. And he had, like he tells the story, he had no time to get nervous during the whole stalk because he thought I was going to shoot it. And so, and I knew that if Rob shot and there was a shot in that canyon and we had to go get it, it was
going to scrub it out.
And then probably, to be honest, it means that we weren't going to have time to go back to that location before we were going to do a 12-hour drive to the northern part of Namibia to do the second part of the hunt where they had kudu bulls, but it was going to be a different type of hunting, and I'd probably have to say goodbye to my bull. Long story short, Rob gets on his sticks, 338 RPM, 575 yards. Drops
578 now, Adam. Don't cheat him.
578. Drops the kudu bull first shot. He put a second one in, Joseph?
Yeah, he flattened him. But at that distance, you never know. The bull was still kicking, and so he put a second one in.
Thick terrain.
Turns out.
Don't want to lose him.
Yeah, yep. And it turns out when we got to his bull, he'd shot him squarely through the shoulders, just a couple inches high of center with that first shot. So almost couldn't have been better. The bull fell quartering to us, and he shot him, laying on his side. He shot him at the juncture of the neck and shoulder with his second shot and drove it back through at an angle. I mean, 578 yards with a rifle of about 5 pounds plus a 12-ounce scope. Holy smokes. You couldn't do that just a few years ago. But with the quality of today's rifles and Rob's system, which is a combination of one of his Spartan Precision Equipment's tripods with 2 extra legs on the back. He calls it the pent system, like Pentagon for 5, right? 5 legs.
Yep.
You really can get rock steady, and yet the whole thing weighs probably less than 2 pounds, 3 pounds.
Yeah.
That's pretty slick.
It was cool. So Rob shoots it. Or you can ask what's next.
Well, yeah. So I felt like there was more because you.
Well, here's the deal. This day, I know we're camping on this day, and we have a lot of days left on the hunt, and we haven't even got to the cool part of the country yet. So we better keep moving. But here's what happens.
Yeah.
I go look. He came down a whole nother valley, the opposite direction of the original area back where we'd seen the Bloody Horn Bull, and which was the same area that I'd seen my bull 2 days previous that I'd missed. And so I said, Jacques, what do you say if Joseph and the tracker and Rob go recover that bull. And what do you say if you and I go poke back up over the hill into that other valley and just spend an hour or two before we leave and just not see, because water's water and there's not a lot of water, and so there's only, down these certain valleys, and, we know we could be at this one 2 miles down this valley. We don't know. And Jock kind of did that. He paused. Do you remember, Joseph? He paused for a little bit. I don't know if if you were talking to Rob, but it was like 10 seconds or something, and he goes, all right, let's go.
Yeah, he's a strategic, thoughtful hunter, and he knew, like we did, that 2 shots had been fired. The valley had been disturbed, but also it was unseasonably cold, and it's the cold part of Namibia, right? It's their winter there when it's June, July here.
Sure.
And because it's cold, and because they're not hunted, they're not pressured, the kudu don't move a lot in the early morning. They'll go out as the sun comes up and stand broadside, let the sun warm them. Then they'll feed a little bit, and then as it gets hot, they'll come to water. So Rob shot his bull somewhere around 10:30. The heat of the day's coming, and even though the valley had been disturbed a little, it was kind of on the other side from where the water was and where Adam had missed that big bull 2 days earlier. And so I think we all knew that it was a gamble, but it was also a solid play to go back and watch for a couple hours through the heat of the day there.
It's a good use of time, too. I mean, you don't need everybody over there to go verify.
Cut up the animal and get it out and all that kind of stuff. So we went over there, and as we did, well, Joseph, why don't you complete Rob? So you go down with Joseph, or excuse me, you go down with Rob. Why don't you just kind of finish up with the last cool part of that story, and then I'll jump back to what we saw.
Sure. So we headed down off the hill, and we took the tracker, Joseph, with us, and navigating through the bush across a canyon and then a big flat of just thorn brush that's way too high to see over, dotted with the occasional acacia tree. I have no idea how they do it, but those native trackers seem to have a homing device built in their brains, because we went trucking, fast pace, out across there and went exactly straight to that kudu bull. And there were times later, as we're carrying pieces or whatever, or going back to the truck for water, camera, whatever we did, that Rob and I'd get within 50 yards of that bull, and it would take us 10 minutes to find him. It was thick where he fell. Man, the tracker took us exactly straight to him without hesitation.
Wow.
And as you walk up to your first big old kudu bull, because this was a great bull as well, there's an incredible feeling of respect and awe. And remember, at this point, Rob had earned a kudu bull more than any of the rest of us. Austin had shot one at this point. I had shot one. Adam had only been there for a few days. Rob, at this point, had his 55 miles worth of kudu hunting in 5 days. And I mean, he was a little bit emotional. I could see the respect as he knelt by that bull's head, and then with surprise and a little bit of delight, he picked something up out of the sand, almost like from under the bull's neck, and it was 18 inches of kudu horn covered with fresh blood around the break at the bottom. Somewhere, we're still not sure where, that bull was carrying the broken piece, the broken end of the other big bull's antler in him.
No
and
way.
So it was, it was confirmed
it was a mile away from where we saw the bloody kudu bull.
At least, especially considering that loop he took. And so it was confirmed. He was the one that broke the other great big bull's horn off and had been in that fight, and just an extraordinarily cool end to Rob's hunt. So we took a bunch of pictures. Later we we didn't cut them up, but the trackers cut them up. They're professionals at their job, and me being a backcountry hunter and a DIY guy, the first time I went to Africa, it was so hard not to jump in there and help. I felt like I was being high maintenance and egotistical not to do that. But the PH kind of tapped me and pulled me aside, and he said, I understand where you're coming from, and I respect that. But these guys are, they hold very envied positions within their community. They are professionals in the best sense over here, and if you jump in and help them, it's kind of, to them, it's like saying they're somehow not doing their job right. And so he said, out of respect, let them do it. So it's hard, but being a journalist, I just transfer to saying, all right, I'm going to document this, and I go to the camera and I take a bunch of pictures. But yeah, we watched, we helped where appropriate, but it's a pretty cool thing to watch those guys cut up and carry out a kudu bull. And Rob carried out the head on his shoulders himself, and we got some just epic photographs of him doing that.
So Rob's kudu had been impaled by the one that broke his horn off. That's pretty wild.
And here's the deal. They never found the hole in the body where he was carrying it for that perceivably hours that morning. And yet it was laying right next to him. So when he died, it just popped out right on the ground. And then here's what's crazy, too. I mean, the bull was probably, 8 to 10 years old, Joseph?
Rob's bull?
Yes.
At least. He might have been more than 10.
Probably
he was old.
Probably the broken bull, too. And so you're talking thousands of days it's lived, and we happen to go the morning that it breaks it off.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
And then he finds it. So pretty cool story.
Yeah, that's wild.
So in the meantime, they're doing that. Jacques and I are over across the hill, way out of sight, looking down that other valley where the water was, where I missed my bull. We end up seeing some very young bulls and some cows go into water. They left. Jacques was glassing up on a hill out of eyesight from me. And all of a sudden, in the middle of this open area, 50 yards from any trees, a giant kudu bull is sitting there.
Just sitting in the open.
Yes, and it was like Jacques later told me he did the same thing. I'd looked to the left, looked to the right, didn't see him come out of the trees. The ghost appeared right in the middle of an opening, 50 yards from a tree, standing there. And then he walks, Jacques not with me, he's just kind of up over, and I know he's coming back my way. And I thought, well, I wonder if he saw him. And I said, that was a really big bull. Now, I don't know kudu when you see elk or mule deer and you see one and you're here, you know the uniqueness parts about it. I don't know kudu bulls as well. I haven't hunted them as much.
Sure.
But Jacques comes over and he goes, the craziest thing happened. I was looking away. And all of a sudden I look back 30 seconds later and this giant kudu bull's sitting there. And he goes, I think that could be your bull. Well, sure enough, we sit there and wait, and it pops out in these trees, and we get little glimpses. Jacques confirms that is the kudu bull you missed 2 days before.
And how far at this point?
About 500 yards.
Okay.
And we're up on a hill, and he's down, and you can't go in after him. Your visibility would be non-existent.
Right.
And so we have a vantage point up on a hill looking down, seeing him come through. He gets a look and sees it and says he's going to pop out right in this area. I get set up. I took Rob's shooting pent system over there.
Okay.
I get set up 450 to 500. Can't remember exactly where. From the opening, he's going to pop out at 10 minutes, 20 minutes. And Jacques will say what? If I don't see him for how many minutes, he gets real worried, a kudu? It's, I don't know.
Yeah, about 10 minutes.
He says
7 to 10 minutes.
If you don't see him for 10 minutes, then you could just never see him.
They gave you the
Again,
slip.
It's the gray ghost, and they're gone. 10 minutes, probably 20, 30 minutes go by. And we're sitting there, and nothing. But we kind of, with the trees, said, golly, I don't think he slipped. I think he just bedded for a little bit. And we saw him in the middle of that field, and we didn't think he'd got water. And we said, I'll bet he'll maybe go to water. We waited and waited. All of a sudden, 100 to 200 yards left from where we'd seen him last, he's popped out, and he's walking to water. And he goes, that's your bull, Adam. That is your bull. So it was time to get revenge. Had the 338 RPM. Went behind some trees, had several minutes to get more nervous. All those things happened. And then at 490 yards, he popped out broadside and stopped for a half a second and popped him. He ended up going kind of forward, and again, I shot him again as well. I'd heard all the stories. I'd missed him the other day. He was quartering slightly too, and I think I did hit him first shot. Wasn't it in the crease, not on the shoulder, Joseph, if I recall?
That sounds right,
remember.
yeah.
It was, again, just where you default go to when you're hunting elk and hunting things out here. Long story, got down there, and the third kudu bull with, at that point, Joseph's at 2 to 220, mine at 490 yards, Rob's at 575. And we have a picture of 3 of those TTSXs recovered at different lengths, which is really kind of cool with that. And Joseph, you've hunted over there a lot. You've shot different kudu. This is a cool part of the story. your largest kudu, and I know we normally don't talk about sizes, and that's not why we go. However, I knew, and I'd asked Joseph multiple times how large his largest kudu was, and how big was it? 56 and a third?
Yes. Yep.
56 and a third in length. And so we get down there, and everybody goes, this is a ginormous kudu bull. And he was old and mature, and his spiral were just deep. And I don't know kudu. Would you agree, Joseph? It was
yeah. He's one of the more spectacular bulls. He might be the most spectacular bull I've actually seen on the ground, just because of, I guess, the word that comes to mind, the purity of the shape of his horns. He's got the giant spirals, the beautiful figure eight shape that comes clear around and tips well forward. Just an ultimately classic big kudu bull. Beautiful, beautiful animal.
Perfect specimen.
It was. So we got him out, and a couple days later, kind of bugging Jacques to measure him. They don't like to focus on inches, and it's about the experience and a mature bull. But I knew it was going to be in the runnings to beat 56 and a third, maybe. And I knew it was going to be
And you're
right
not
in there.
competitive at all, Adam.
Not even a little.
And this was years ago. What year did you shoot that bull, Joseph? Do you remember your largest bull?
2014, yeah.
So 2014, 8 years ago, Joseph shot his largest bull, and he's not been able to beat that one since, right?
Right.
And so Jacques didn't. He knows a bunch of people. He had no idea the length that Joseph's was. He knew, I mean, that was with Jacques, though, correct? Or not? Was the your largest?
Yep,
yes.
absolutely it was. I've shot all my biggest bulls with Jacques, yep.
So, but Jacques didn't remember. So
no, he'd have had to go
look in the records.
Yeah,
and figure
look
it
in
out.
his records.
So,
yep.
a couple days later, I know that they do go. They have a process and they do measure, and when it's in the skinning shed and all these things. And so we're driving out. It was actually the morning we were driving out to go to the north, and he's opening the gate. And we drove by when he's opening the gate, and I go, Jacques, and I asked him again, how long was my bull? 56 and a third.
No way.
To the third of an inch, exactly the size of Joseph.
No kidding.
Which I just thought was cool because then we kind of both won. Joseph was probably upset because it was my first trip and my first kudu. I probably deserved less, especially after missing it. But between missing it first, between Rob and his story that morning, between it being the same size as Joseph's, it was just, that whole experience was, it was just incredible.
It was
Joseph,
outstanding.
Did you and Rob hear Adam's shot?
We did. In fact, we were taking pictures, and it was probably an hour and a half to 2 hours after Rob shot his when the whole valley reverberated with that shot. And, I mean, we both went on point like a good bird dog.
Right?
It's like, oh, yeah, it's happening. And we listened a little bit, a few seconds later, there's a follow-up shot, and with both of them, believe it or not, we'd been able to hear that thwack. When a 338 hits stuff, you kind of know it. Yeah. And so, gosh, we were on pins and needles. The tracker had a radio, and we had it on. He was holding it, but we didn't dare push the button and say, did you get him?
What happened?
You don't know if they're still trying to finish the job or whatnot. So I think we waited 15 minutes or so, and then Jock finally came on the radio and said, hey, if you guys are wrapped up, you can come on around here. He said, we're sure the bull is down, but he's behind some trees, and we're going to, start working our way down to go find him.
Awesome.
And, just a crazy, cool experience. Very, very good experience. And Adam, I actually shot my biggest kudu with my first hunt with Jock as well. It wasn't my first safari, but it was my first safari to Namibia, so you and I also share that in common.
It's pretty awesome.
So
I bet the campfire was fun that night.
It was. You end up, you have, every day we're eating, it's oryx casserole, it's kudu this, it's zebra this. Every day you're nonstop eating Africa game, and it's usually the stuff that we're shooting.
Yep.
And then after dinner every night, you do go around the campfire. And what's neat is Jacques' dad, Donnie, and his mom, Ansi, they're there, and it's just a family operation. And they all have stories, stories after stories of hunting there, and his dad being a PH. And They end up, you do a little toast, and they have these shots and special drinks for the different animals you take, and some songs that you sing that are not in our language to celebrate it. And in fact, they even have this traditional thing where they'll give the animal its last meal, and they put this grass in the animal's mouth. And it just a lot of real tradition, a lot of honoring the animal. And just, of course, everything is eaten over there, which is neat too. I mean, every single thing. Everything is eaten, the organs. So nothing goes to waste, and that was pretty incredible while we were there too. But yeah, it was a neat night that night celebrating the Kudu Bowls that went down. So it was pretty cool. To get two trophy Kudu Bowls in one day, free range in a place like that is it doesn't happen.
Well, so was it 24 hours roughly from the miss to getting?
No, 48.
48. Yeah. So but still quite a range of emotion there where you miss, you go back out, you elect to let Rob shoot one, knowing probably that was it.
Yeah, or until we drive 12 hours north. But the fact that then I get the same bowl that I missed 2 days before, but was able to have Rob get his, it was a fairy tale ending to that story for sure. It could have been a lot worse.
That's pretty awesome. That's really awesome.
Redemption and the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow all in one.
It was neat. Yeah.
So this has all been at the like more lodgy type camp, is
Correct.
that right? And then,
at their home and main lodge down more by Windhoek, the capital down in central Namibia. And so the whole idea was we were going to be there for the first half, 5 days of the trip, and then we were going to head up to the northern region. They used to call it the Caprivi Strip. It's a little panhandle, a tiny little panhandle up in the northeast part of there. There's a 1.1 million acre game park there. It borders basically you're by Botswana and Angola up there, Joseph, if I recall.
Yeah, and the tip of the panhandle touches Zimbabwe.
Yes, and so you're up there by all these neighboring countries. We're going up to lion territory, croc territory. It's going to be a wall tent camp on a river, totally different climate, much warmer. I mean, so we spent 12 hours in the Land Cruisers, all packed up, driving up there to do that hunt. And Joseph had told me about it, but he did a great job at selling me on it enough to get me to go, but not overselling it, because when I showed up and you get out and it's right on this river, the wall tents, they built up some wood decks around the wall tents, and it was just, I felt like I'd got in a time machine and my grandpa was going to get out of the truck next to me. I mean, it was surreal. It was that type of Africa. The birds flying over immediately. We're hearing hippos. We're seeing crocs lay out by the river. I mean, we're talking 14-foot crocs, laying out. And it was like, it was incredible up there in the north.
I think you texted me upon arrival there at something to the effect of, I'm pretty sure Hemingway wrote a book here.
It's true, isn't it, Joseph? That's what it's like up there, huh?
It's incredible, yeah. We went out for a little drive that first evening. We saw elephants, hippo, crocodile, Cape buffalo, ostriches, and then, of course, just all, vast giraffe spectrum, big warthogs, and so forth. It's a very, very beautiful, cool area up there. It's on the Namibians call it the Kavango River in Botswana, which is like you can see into Botswana from parts of where we hunt. They call it the Okavango River. Same river, but just a fantastic, unspoiled area to hunt.
Sable, lechwe. I mean, a lot of, so you're more water, game that hang around water, because it's actually on the river. The only rivers with water in them in Namibia are on the borders. The whole middle of the country all the rivers are dry. So we went to a much more wet area, so you're going to get game up there like crocs, obviously, and hippos that like the wet.
Wild. Yeah. So what's other than the change of scenery, why the move? We're targeting some new species now?
Yes.
Okay. What are we looking for?
Well,
there's a lot about a different experience, different type of Africa. You're going from that Kalahari desert type hunting up to more of the giant baobab trees and huge acacia trees at that point, the river, all the different wildlife. stalking and tracking Cape buffalo was a big part of the reason we went. We'll get more into that. Jock does guide trophy buffalo hunts there, and I think the biggest he's shot in recent years is a 47-inch Cape buffalo, which for the connoisseurs of Cape buffalo hunting among our listeners, they'll know that's truly extraordinary. Big bulls up there. But our purpose was management Cape buffalo and, of course, some other plains game species. And just to touch on it before we get into the dangerous game stuff, Austin Brown, our other companion, had shot a real nice old bull, a 50-inch Kudu bull down on the Kovas headquarters area. But you can shoot, too, in Namibia. And he'd told his PH that if a chance came at a real whopper, he'd like to take a second bull. And not to get off in the weeds there, but our second to last or last day there, a real huge old bull was seen by a tracker and apprentice PH, and they went back and spent the afternoon in a giant thorn brush area tracking him and bumping him
without seeing him at the beginning. They just went and found the tracks.
And they tracked him with two trackers and the PH, the assistant, the apprentice PH, and then Austin, the hunter, for hours. And I think they bumped him once or twice toward the end, got a look at him, and then finally Austin shot him when he flushed like a quail at 20 yards or less, 15 yards, as the evening drew on with his 375 H&H and just snowplowed him. Beautiful, classic, thicket-type tracking hunt. And that bull also went 56 inches.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was old. Like, they didn't think... I mean, it was...
Yeah, he was on his way out. He'd probably been taken by a leopard or lion within the year. Yep.
No kidding.
Yeah. So there was plains game. I ended up shooting an impala up there with the 338 RPM as well. And that was cool. Just hunting impala is fun. They're just kind of everywhere. But finding a mature one, you might pass on 40 to 50 small bulls before you see a good impala. So just a lot of young ones. Maybe second or third day up there, ended up stumbling on a real beautiful impala. Did a little stock on it. Shot it 150 yards, 338 RPM on it. Impala, it did the number rather
did the job.
quickly, yes. So there was no problems there. So that was fun to shoot an impala as well. So I got to do that up there. There was potential of hippo and croc hunting. It wasn't on my list. Austin and Joseph had some things on their list too, and so there was some hunting for those, although a croc or hippo was not taken.
Gotcha.
Yep. I don't know if you want to expand on that, Joseph, but we can move on to the other stuff. But
yeah, the focus up there was for Cape buffalo, and we'd filed for a couple of what they call own use permits. We'd actually filed for 4, and the original hope was that each of us would be able to hunt one, but knowing going in that they're never a sure thing. So the safari operator will file for they're really a management permit where you don't get to keep any of the animal. You get to take all the pictures you want. You get the hunt experience. You can eat a piece of them around the campfire that night, but the bulk of it goes to the local community. Last time I was there, we shot 4 plus a hippo, and it all went to the big yearly tribal festival. This time,
cool.
This time the 2 that we were able to obtain and got went to the local anti-poaching team. Both the dollars for those permits, which is pennies on the dollar compared to a trophy buffalo hunt, but it's still a substantial amount, especially for them, for their funding to repair vehicles, pay for fuel, pay for tires in thornbrush country, right? And the salaries of the poachers, and then the meat went to the anti-poaching team as well. And meat there, you wouldn't think it, but it's highly prized. You think that Africa is full of game meat. Well, it is, but it's also hard to get, especially for the local native tribes. And so they get really, really appreciative when there's a buffalo handed over to them to feed them and their families and their local community. Yeah.
Yeah, so we knew we were going to get 2. Joseph had shot one, and because Rob and I were older than Austin, Joseph said that Rob and I could get the permits. Since Austin was younger, Joseph said he's got maybe more odds that he'll get back here and get it. so
yeah,
it's good
there
logic.
was that, and I just knew how much it meant to Rob. You know, he's in his, I think he's 58, something like that, but he's dreamed about this his entire life, and he finally was there. So I knew in my mind if we got 1 permit, he was the man for it. But we got 2, and just knowing about, not that I was really in charge, but I talked it over with Jock, and we both felt the same. You had come to hunt Africa for your first time with the 416, which your father and Craig Boddington brought to hunt Cape Buffalo with, and it just felt right that you have that second permit. And yeah, Austin's young. He'll be back.
Yeah. It was kind of
awesome.
neat. You know, there's this video. It's available on VHF of Ed Weatherby and Craig Boddington. If you don't know Craig, he's a outdoor writer, accomplished hunter, Weatherby Big Game Trophy Award winner. And so in the late 80s, 88 or 89, they came over and shot the first animal with the 416, which was neat.
Awesome.
And Joseph, much like Craig of this era, is very accomplished in his area. In fact, Joseph came with me when we launched the 6.5 RPM in 2019, and I shot a black bear on that trip, as did Joseph, and it was the first and second animal shot with that cartridge. So some history there.
Yeah.
So to be back there with Joseph 35 years after Dad and Craig were there, going after the same species with the same cartridge was really special. And so we were going after an old bull. It was not a trophy bull. Typically, the way Cape Buffalo work is they're going to get ground down. You're not going to have the width on them. So you're really looking at the bosses in that front end just being
It's like the big base on top of their head.
the huge, big base.
Yeah.
They call it the boss, and you're looking for an old bull, what they say past their breeding prime, so that from a management standpoint, it really makes sense. So we saw some big bulls, but we were looking for really, really old bulls that were
Gotcha.
there. And I'd heard my first few days around there about story after story about close encounters. Another guy there, Francois, had almost been killed by a hippo, literally should have been killed by a hippo in the water, ended up on top of a hippo. Crazy story. And then countless Cape Buffalo stories, even when Joseph had been on over there. You know, a lot of game, when you shoot them, they like to run the other way. Cape Buffalo like to kill you if you're trying to kill them. So had been hearing stories, and so all they kept saying was, you got to make your first shot count. You don't want to go track a wounded Cape Buffalo. You got to make it count. And of course, having the jinx from that one Kudu miss, I'm like, hey, don't screw this one up, Adam.
Right.
Now, the crazy thing is they try to get you well within 100 yards for that first shot.
To make sure that you make it count.
Yes. And you're shooting a large bullet that drops a little quicker than a
Yeah.
6.5 300. And so Rob was actually up first. And Joseph, you went out, I know, we probably don't have the time to maybe necessarily go through Rob's whole thing, but he went out, and you guys had a great experience getting his buffalo first.
We did, and he borrowed my 416 to hunt with, so I borrowed yours to back him up with.
Yes.
That was
Oh,
kind
nice.
of fun.
Yeah.
I wanted some buffalo blood on mine, right? Since I didn't get the permit, at least needed to do some talking in the buffalo country. So we did have a spectacular hunt. We ended up close. We were within 17 yards of a belligerent bull at one point that knew
my.
we were there and wanted to come into the thicket we were hiding in. So that was, touch and go. Just we tracked him, we glassed him, we stalked him, we tracked more. We were on multiple different bulls. We were in the middle of a big herd in a thicket at one point. Rob got such a beautiful, wonderful buffalo hunting experience in just 2 days because of the vast variety of methods we had. And then in the end, he got a little more of the dangerous type of flavor than he wanted, because we were working hard for a shot. When his shot opportunity came, I think it was about 90 yards. He was on the standing shooting sticks, and he shot just a fraction quickly. He was really keyed up and in tune with the moment, but what he forgot was to hold forward into that shoulder, and so he shot it basically in the crease behind the shoulder, and the bull was quartering ever so slightly toward us, so he more or less single-lunged it. And then it exited. There was a little bit of stomach blood mixed, or fluid mixed with the blood as we picked up the track. And we had a pretty good video of that first shot. He shot again as it departed, and I think that shot probably is kind of what saved the whole situation. He ran the bolt fast. He sent another solid. You load a soft, an expanding bullet into your chamber, and then your magazine's full of solids, meaning non-expanding bullets. We were using Barnes bullets, so the banded solid it's all copper, or it's a copper alloy. It'll drive pretty much end to end through a buffalo. And then we're shooting 350 grain tipped triple shock bullets for the first shot, and they performed wonderfully as well. Anyway, he got his follow-up shot into the rear hip of that bull, and it kind of quartered up through him. And we watched the video, and it kind of happened almost slow motion at high speed, if that makes any sense. I was expecting, honestly, for us to give him some time, for Jock to walk us through what was going to happen, but he just quickly made sure that everybody was good, Rob was reloaded, and we got on that track hustling. And he said, you guys stay right behind Peter, the tracker at this point. I'm going to flank you. Peter will track, you guys watch his back, and I'm going to be off to the side 20 or 30 yards looking for the bull. Long story short, we went into the thicket. Yep. And the track went into this little, maybe 20-yard opening, 120 yards from where he'd been shot. And then there were two obvious paths, one straight ahead, one to the left. They looked briefly straight ahead and then started moving to the left. And for whatever reason, all day long I'd been looking over my shoulder. I just felt like somehow I needed to watch all of our backs. And as we started to the left, I looked over my shoulder, and I'll be darned if that bull wasn't standing 20 yards from us, and he just waded into the thicket to our right. Thankfully, he was facing away. I kind of hissed at Jock. We turned around, and within seconds, Rob and I were both lined up. Jock whispered, both shoot. And so as soon as Rob's rifle went, I squeezed the trigger. We're both shooting solids at this point, and the bull just kind of teetered and collapsed on his left side like a giant barn falling down. And holy smokes, it was tense going in there. You know, Rob was beating himself up about making a poor first shot. And I said, look, it's over. You held it together well. You did a fantastic job on this follow-up. And look at the silver lining. Not very many people get to experience, thankfully, going into a thicket knowing there's a wounded buffalo in there. And you did. And you're okay. And so you
That's
can
some serious
remember
pucker factor
this
on
as
that.
part of the, it'll add to the richness of the entire experience. The bull didn't suffer long. We got him quickly, and it's done. Later, Jock told us, he said, if we hadn't found him right away, we would have pulled out. We'd have had that talk. We'd have discussed what could happen, how to react, and exactly what each person's role was. But he said often when a bull runs into a thicket like that, wounded, he'll go in and stop in the first secluded patch, not sure what happened. And then as he starts to get into pain and more pain, he gets angry, and he'll turn and he'll circle back and start watching his back trail. He said, I really try and hustle the first 3 to 5 minutes and get where you can see him. If he's stopped in view, often you can catch him before he's angry and end it before it gets really dangerous. Thankfully, that's exactly what happened.
Wow. That's pretty wild.
So I hear that story, and then I'm up.
Oh, perfect.
But no pressure. No pressure on this
Right?
shot. No, so I was super happy for Rob, and it was a great experience. So we had some Rocky Mountain Bowl oysters that night around the campfire, celebrated for Rob, and just for time's sake, maybe we'll just kind of wrap up with my experience on the buffalo.
Let's hear it.
Which went out the first evening, and we got onto Cape Buffalo because they're often kind of by the river and out in these areas, but didn't see an old bull. Saw some young bulls, and in fact got into about maybe 100 yards away and practice kind of dry firing from back in the bush on standing sticks, and just really kind of helped me just kind of prepare for that moment of doing it. Beautiful night. I remember riding back Land Cruiser that night, Joseph and I in the back, and that sunset. Remember, Joseph, we were just taking pictures, and it was just a beautiful night of buffalo hunting. No buffalo taken, but it was a beautiful night.
No buffalo taken, beautiful night, and we drove through a herd.
Yeah.
So, to our surprise, there was a herd just scattered all around the 2-track in this thorn brush, and we drove right through them. On our way back, they were some as close as 20 yards. Yeah, very cool.
Wow, that's awesome.
It was neat. And so the next morning we went out, and first couple hours of the day was kind of a bust and didn't see, we saw, the other problem is too, is you can shoot them on the other side of the river, but you can't really get a buffalo from the other side of the river too. And it's a little bit far, so sometimes you see them across, and the river does snakes and does all these things. So,
Sure.
you know, it's a little bit, you got to be selective where you shoot it. You don't just pack it out on your back. And
they get in the
there's
swamps
crocs and
there
hippos.
in the swamps there's the crocs and hippos, but more to the point, you can't get the buffalo out of a swamp in a timely and safe manner. So you really need to wait for them to come out of the swamps where they've been feeding through the night to bed in those thickets, and then you start hunting them.
So we'd seen some younger ones that morning, and we spent a good couple hours, maybe 2-3 hours down at this one area, just watching buffalo, but not seeing old ones. Saw a giant herd with just a bunch of young bulls and cows and calves. And so we ended up leaving that and going back to an area where we thought a couple old bulls had been seen previously, on the other side of the swamp. So we drive all the way back there, and I'd kind of already given up that morning. The morning was almost over, and I think in Africa, out here and out west, usually by that like 10 o'clock time, you're like, okay, well, up to about 3:30, it's time to nap and eat, and we're gonna just hang out. And more times than not, I mean, I shot my Kudu bull at 11:30 or something, and so sure enough, we pull up to the river, and there's a decent-sized older bull crossing the river. And he goes into the brush, but he kind of wasn't a shooter. We just wanted to be that old bull past, breeding. It was kind of for this management permit. We really were trying to respect that and what would be best for the anti-poaching unit and the permits and conservation and otherwise. And so literally 2 bulls. Was the one in the river one of those 2 that we saw then, Joseph? Or was it 2 different ones? Do you remember?
No, I think it was. I think they were a group. They were just kind of spread out as they came out of the swamps and across the river, yeah.
So it appears 100 yards away, over to the right, we see 2 old bulls.
Perfect.
And Jacques gets out his binos, and some warthogs actually spooked him. Oh. And so they took off. So the bulls end up taking off, trotting and running in another direction. And we end up going for a stalk after them. We had the tracker, Joseph, myself, Jacques, and basically head off around the trees and different things to try to find them again, knowing that the one bull was a shooter bull.
Right.
And so we're tracking them. The warthogs had spooked them, and finally the 2 of them in the middle of a field, they get out from the trees, stop, just freeze.
Huh.
So we end up doing a stalk, and the wind was right for it to get up to a group of trees that was, 80 yards?
Yeah, I think so. They were kind of stopped in the middle of a dry pan almost that would probably hold a few inches of water in the rainy season, and we snuck up behind, I think of them as cabbage palms. That's not what they call them there, but in Florida,
like
that's
palms.
what they'd call them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're short, and there was 2 of them kind of offset. So we were all stacked up behind the one, and then if you leaned way off to the right, you could see underneath the branches of the other one, you could see those bulls standing.
Yep. So they were standing there. We got behind those palms. The problem is we couldn't scoot out to get a shot at them, and they were just standing there. Kind of broadside, quartering to in a way, didn't move.
Right.
Just frozen. I think, again, the warthogs had kind of spooked them, and what seemed like 6 days, the same amount of time to travel to Africa. We sat behind there waiting for their heads to turn or something to happen so we could just slide out. Well, literally, how long was it before we kind of slid those? We took apart the standing traditional African shooting sticks, took off the legs, and we realized because of the way the palm came out, standing actually wasn't going to work, and because of the water situation, there wasn't a lot of grass, that I was going to do a sitting shooting sticks. We were going to get below where these trees kind of came out and shoot right below it.
Okay.
And so...
Yeah, you're shooting under the canopy of the one in front, and I swear, I was trying to video it, and I was thinking, my phone battery is going to go dead. I think it took about 25 minutes for you and Jock to sit down.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. So how long do you think that we were behind? I mean, we were behind there a while before we popped
I think it was
out.
about 25 minutes, and he sat down, he scooted over about a yard, and you were staying right behind him. The PH will teach you to kind of use them as a shield, right? Whenever they move, you move with them and keep them between you and the animal. And so you're kind of hunkered behind him, and you oozed out together. And he set up the shooting sticks in slow motion, and then he got you on it, and he kind of just melted out from underneath the sticks in you and eased off to your side. At that point, he motioned for me to kind of belly crawl around behind the two of you. And I knew, okay, things are about to start happening here. Finally.
So Joseph took my iPhone, and in one hand he had his 416 as backup because there was a Cape Buffalo, one of Africa's most dangerous game, 80 yards away. And in the other hand, it had an iPhone and started capturing video footage of the bull. The kind of assistant PH guy was videoing me, I think, on the rifle.
Okay.
And so we had some top-notch iPhone videography going on. He was pretty much just about broadside, and we had these Leupold VX6s 1-to-6 power with a little red dot on there. So I was at 2 power at 80 yards, and on that Cape Buffalo with those black crosshairs, that little red dot's really handy.
Yeah.
And I just put it right on the shoulder and squeezed. My trigger was pretty light on that 416, actually, surprisingly, and it went off just at the right time and hit him perfect in the boiler room. He rears up, and he starts turning towards us, running full speed.
Just instantly.
Yes. However, he didn't, if you move, that's why they tell you don't go stand up and whatever, because if they see that movement, they're going to charge that movement.
Right.
He ran in our general direction, but he'd come to the side of us, right to our right.
He didn't necessarily see you. He
Correct, but he just heard the shot and said, I'm going to run.
I'm going to go get
that. It was probably most certainly a heart shot. Would you agree? Or a vital shot, Joseph?
Oh, yeah. You'd heart shot him, and he was just doing that full throttle death run. But those animals, they have such mass. And for whatever reason, I think they hold on to oxygen a little longer than most of your deer, and even the non-buffalo antelope species over there. They can go quite a way on a shattered heart. So this bull, he was coming full throttle even with a broken shoulder, because you also broke his shoulder. You can see that in the video. You heart shot him, and he was coming like a freight train, not at us, but if we had just frozen and not kept, you guys hadn't kept shooting, I think he'd have passed within 15 to 20 yards at maximum.
At our right.
Wow.
Unless, but he started turning more and more towards us, so you just don't know.
Right.
Right. And he might have tried to come to the thicket we were in for shelter, and then he just come right through us.
Yeah.
So did you get a second shot?
So I got a second shot pretty much right in the middle of his belly. He was kind of quartering very much to us, and just pretty much, shot a second shot, which he didn't flinch on, looking at the video. I get my third round, which would have been my second solid. And at this point, he's closed the distance at least in half in the matter of a handful of seconds. Would you agree, Joseph?
Yeah.
And he's coming what looks like almost straight at us, angling a few degrees away from us. And I shot, and when you listen to the video, you can barely hear a 470 Nitro Express double barrel by Jacques going off right next to me. So we both, on my third shot, because he'd closed that distance in half and was running at us, even though I'd made a hard shot, and the second shot hit him in the middle of his body.
That they're still running at you, or it's still running at you.
Correct.
What about the
We
second one?
both-
Did it just take off, or did?
It was running full speed when I shot it, and it just went right through him, and you barely even saw. Because we found all the bullet holes. It was right there, but he just kept running right through it. I mean, it was like
And the other bull actually took off the direction he was facing, which was away from us, thankfully.
yes,
Gotcha.
yes, and so he. Oh, that's what you were asking.
Yeah,
about, was
that's
the
what
other
I
bull.
meant, the
Sorry.
second bull.
So then, when I shot my third shot, and Jacques shot at the same time, we both hit him right up front in his shoulder areas or whatever. He goes into the ground. His horns dig into the ground, and a tidal wave of dirt goes, and he lays there. And Jacques said, "Put one more right above his horn." At that point, I'd reloaded, and on the 2 follow-up shots as it was charging me, I got the little bit of Leupold VX6 HD right above my eyebrow. The initial shot I didn't, but man, when you have a Cape Buffalo running straight at you,
You just focused
oh
on
my
purely
gosh.
getting a shot off.
Yes, and
Nothing else
obviously
matters.
I was swinging my rifle in a hurry, and then I put one more right above his horns. And in a matter of what we edited, it was a 13-second video that all happened.
Wow.
Yeah, so I'm sure I'll post that or whatever. And it was exciting when I went up to it. I think the nostalgia, the stories, my father's stories when I was in middle school of that Cape Buffalo, and all the things you hear about and read about, and knowing the stories and the danger and just the family thing. I had an emotional moment when I walked up to that buffalo. You probably remember, Joseph, you were there, but it was,
Everyone should with their first Cape Buffalo. It's such a significant moment in a hunter's life. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that was such a spectacular thing too. I mean, like you said, that bull was coming, if not exactly right at us, very focused in there's more than our general direction. He was coming close and fast, and you were shooting hard, reloading fast, and there's an intensity and a focus that occurs in an experience like that is unmatched by anything else that's not potentially life-threatening. Yeah, and so afterward, there will be an emotional reaction, and it's a fantastic thing. Someone once said, "You never feel as alive as when you've nearly died."
Mm-hmm. It's true. And that was the culmination and the wrap-up, and after that, these guys went out and shot a couple more, plains game, and for me, I just wanted to end the trip on that. And so for my hunting experience.
Sure.
And there was a lot of journaling on the back porch overlooking the river with the same journal that Brenda had taken on her first safari in 2016. And the first entry I made was June 21st, 22, and her first entry was June 21st, 2016.
Oh, no kidding.
So I took the same journal and spent, when they were out, spent some time doing that, and just some time reflecting on the trip, and really ending it on the Cape Buffalo. So it was far exceeded my expectations. Thank you, Joseph, for the invite. Couldn't imagine doing it with a better person, somebody more knowledgeable, not only about hunting and shooting and ballistics and all the things around it, but about Africa itself, for somebody from America and the amount of times you've been there and your experience. And it just could not have been a better initial trip to the continent of Africa to hunt. It was incredible.
Oh, it was an honor to be there with you, Adam. And I'd like to say we're going to go again and it's going to be even better, but candidly, I don't know if you'll ever beat the quality of that safari. You'll have other great ones, but I agree. That was just an extraordinary, wonderful experience.
56 2/3 on the Kudu, Joseph.
Oh, he's growing, is he?
No, I'm saying on my next trip.
The next one.
Oh, okay. Well, that's all right, because I'm going to shoot a 58.
Well, what a treat for me to hear from both of you guys. Both great recaps on the trip, and appreciate you sharing that with us, Joseph. If anybody wants to hear more about that trip, I know you guys recorded both the podcasts with Joseph's Backcountry Hunting Podcast there, so you can go check that out. And
what's the Backcountry Hunting Podcast? Is that what it's called, Joseph? Right?
Yeah, you can just search Backcountry Hunting Podcast on any typical listening app from Apple to Spotify, all of those. And, it turned out pretty cool. We did 2 what I call field episodes or around the campfire episodes, just using a simple recording device, but both of them got tremendous positive feedback from our listeners, especially the second one. It was 2 hours long, and we recapped a lot of what we've talked about here with a bunch of other hunts and experiences and so forth. So, yeah, I'd be delighted to have listeners come over and check it out, Backcountry Hunting Podcast. And if I may just throw it out there, if you're interested in hunting with Kovas Adventure Safaris, Kovas Hunting Safaris, check them out too. And if you have questions about them and doing a trip like Adam and I did, you can email me personally at, I just use my podcast email, which is joseph@backcountrypodcast.com. Be delighted to answer any questions I can.
And if we're doing the shout-outs, Rob Gearing with Spartan Precision, just a quality guy. I loved sharing camp with him. And not only is he a quality guy, but he's got quality products. And when we matched him up with other products, it was just a great time, too. So you can give a shout-out there for Rob. So just love what he's doing, just young, a young business, but really growing, and love what they're doing with ultra lightweight backcountry shooting systems. So another little shout out.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool.
And Rob's mountaineering background shows through. He has an ethos for quality that, well, it shows the fact that he, for decades, his gear, if it failed, his life failed, and it shows in his equipment too.
Yeah, he's a rock climber. So
awesome. Well, thanks again, guys. We'll probably wrap it up here, and Joseph, hope to have you on here again. It's a good time chatting with you.
Thanks for being on.
You bet. It was a real pleasure, and I'd love to join you anytime.
Thanks.
Cool.